Hi everybody, this is the recorded video for Chapter 6 from the Brimley finance text. This one has to do specifically with eroding local control. So basically this chapter is going to kind of explain to us the difference between local and state control. We're going to see, really, we're going to look at what the role of the school district is, what the role of the school board is. The takeaway message and the takeaway lesson for this particular chapter really is this idea that the school district is facing a lot of different pushback between different forces from the state and from the federal government. And what you're going to see financially is that as the district loses power and the federal government tries to take power, the state interjects and takes more power. So it's up to you to determine whether or not that's actually a positive or negative thing related to school finance. This chapter, if you look at it, really belongs more in a school reform book than it does in a finance book. But I do say that this is one of the chapters that could be on the superintendency exam. We're trying to show you that we're moving away from local control in schools, but you have to understand that this is really district specific. But what I think a district has is different than what somebody else might think a district has. And it kind of keeps between the district have and have-nots, which is one of the big topics and big ideas. So state control really started to take place in education. I would argue during the civil rights movement. The state really stepped in the 60s and 70s, and it's continued to increase. Most authors are arguing that we'll move towards more federal control in schools, which truthfully is a natural progression. That's probably what we're going to see. Many Americans feel helplessness to influence national standards. Yes, 100% true. There's a lot that we can't do when there's a national policy movement. But what I think you need to know is that local movements don't go away from state or national movements. So education is a federal interest, a state responsibility that is managed locally. Local authority for education is delegated by the state. The state can step in and say, this is the amount of power that you have, this is the amount of power that you don't have. Local school districts really are the junior partner in financing education. The states determine where the money should go, what should be given, which, in my opinion, that's a good thing. I would rather have state control than federal control. I see a bigger positive with that. But different districts think we should have more local control, and some even think we should have more federal control. Nationwide, you need to know that there is a push for standardization and centralization of curriculum. When the Obama administration came into office, they were really the movement behind this, saying that we need to have it so if a child moves from one state to the other, the standards that the child is used to in Arkansas are going to be the same in Oklahoma. But we know how that went with Common Core in Oklahoma. So, we're trying to make it so that we can jump from state to state and the kids can get the same experiences. But as you know and I know, there's a difference between state to state experience. The state is taking more away from local control, which I think is a good thing. You might disagree with me, but it's the idea that if we're trying to protect from a federal interest, the state has to get involved and take more. This impacts all of us in Oklahoma because we're losing rural control more than anything else. 6.5% of students receiving education in public schools are in schools with fewer than 100 pupils. You're seeing a massive change now where those rural schools are going to have to consolidate to get the funding that they need. The large districts set and make the rules. In this state, the rules are made in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. And you have to know that and you have to understand that. They're not making the rules on how a district should be managed, but they're making the rules on the curriculum that should be covered and the content that should be addressed and the influence on it. Like I keep saying, it's important that you know that we're in a state that values history. Many states don't value history, and that's a different perspective, but that was a decision that was made by policymakers in both Tulsa and Oklahoma City, and that's changed how we look at education. So urban economic advantages are continuing to go down because, as we've already stated so far in this class, they can't make tax decisions. So when a city receives a tax exemption, the money has to come from somewhere, and it tends to be coming from state and federal funding, and that takes away local control. So what do you need to know? You've seen this a million times. The local district is the administrative unit. The school board governs what they do. The superintendent is the administrative officer. And the state determines how many local school districts we actually have. So what you also have to see is this idea that we've already talked about in terms of mergers and consolidations. We've eliminated in the last 60 years over half of our school districts, and we've limited how many local public schools that we have. It's more economical, it makes sense. Transportation costs go down, district auxiliary services reduce significantly, so that's a good thing. But the question is, how many districts are too many to have? That's not my job to answer, and it's not yours either. So when you see districts sharing services, that's when you know the merger or consolidation could occur, is going to occur, might occur. That's the key. Districts don't want to consolidate, but they're more likely to if they're already sharing services anyway. But as we've noted before, and you know about this state, a lot of this depends on it depends on who has access and where they have access. So one of the biggest challenges that we run into basically is size of school districts, because there's only 2 small attendance areas in people that are attending schools. If it's because of space, meaning the district is maybe 100, 200, 300 acres, square miles large, which some districts do hit that type of arrangement. That's different, because they're going to get a tax break. But when we're talking about districts that are really small, when you're a stone's throw away from the district that's next door, and they're only protecting each other for their athletic teams, that's when you're going to have problems with small school districts, and it's going to take away from local control and lead more to state control. So small schools suffer from curriculum limitations. A big idea. Small schools are less likely to have advanced placement courses because those cost money, those cost funding, and those cost training. They're going to suffer more from lack of special services. They're not going to be able to pay the best teachers, because the best teachers are going to be the ones that end up going to different districts that can pay them more money once they get experience. So some other comments that you should think about, including administration of local schools. We're worried a lot more about accountability than local wishes of control. If the school can't meet the accountability factors that have been set forth for them in the beginning, we're going to have problems. We're going to have problems from the beginning. One of the things that I do want to note is kind of this privatization of schools. We've already kind of discussed this, and the education management organization stepping in and being awarded contracts. I don't see this as much in Oklahoma, but one of the things that I saw back home was this notion of success for all. The AP curriculum even coming in and being told what you have to do. But success for all was a reading curriculum that was used by schools. Pearson's Go Math curriculum. Pearson would come in and say, this is how you teach it, this is what you do, and it becomes scripted learning. That saves the district money. You don't have to do as much training, but it takes away the freedom and it takes away the autonomy. So financial problems in urban school districts. One of the problems that the urban school districts are most likely to have is the notion of retaining. It's the notion of retaining and securing teachers. City property values don't hold up over time. The suburb values do, and costs to the district continue to increase. When we're looking at urban school districts, urban teachers are the ones most likely to suffer from teacher burnout. We know that, and when they do, if they've been a good urban teacher, they're going to be able to transition to the city very easily. Key idea to remember is a good urban teacher will work in a good suburban district. A good suburban teacher, there is no guarantee whether or not they're going to work in a good urban district. So most of the time, they're unwilling to take that risk. An urban teacher is going to raise their hand and they're going to say, I'm going to take that risk. So your retention and the cost to retain a teacher in an urban district becomes a lot more and a lot higher. So why do you want local control? Well, you want it so that the parents have more control over the child's education. That's a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And if you can find a way that you can utilize the community and have local interest in schools, that's going to help, and that's going to invest in the district as well. So fiscal independence for school districts. City or county government tries to place local district boards under jurisdiction. However, we all know that that can even be a problem if the city municipalities are sharing districts, which in this state, that's even more common. So you have different municipalities that are responsible for different school districts, meaning that it actually gives the school board more control in the state of Oklahoma. In theory, educators would rather have an independent school board that can make their own decisions themselves. Luckily, we still have that here. I don't see how it's sustained, but it has. So, local taxation practices, as we've already talked about, if there's no space for the state to grow, property tax administration becomes more efficient and effective, and values go up. If there are more homes and housing developments coming in, that becomes a problem because you can't exactly stay up on the taxing. We're going to continue to look for competition from different agencies to increase taxes, which that's not a bad thing if the district is performing well. We know that urban communities will continue to suffer. We need to find a way to make property tax more stable over time and not just automatically advance very, very, very quickly, which is a problem that we're seeing right now. So, what do you need to see related to tax paying ability? It's more or less the value of the property. Is the property worth what people are saying it's worth? How many people have to be educated? Once again, why a big idea in this class is a 1-year, 5-year, and 10-year plan. You need to know who's moving into the district or who's leaving the district, and are people willing to support the programs that you're pushing for? I don't know of any districts that have a valid and reliable measure of local fiscal ability and wealth, because the districts are always going to claim that they have less money and they need more, but that's just a natural thing. I think that's a societal thing. Everybody claims that they need more money. Local wealth is measured by the assessed property value divided by the number of students. Once again, this consistently changes over time. So districts aren't going to experience cohesion coordinating between local and state and federal government. Systems are going to operate in isolation of others, and instead of them sharing services and sharing what they can offer to students, that becomes a problem. There isn't consistency between states. All of you know that Oklahoma and Texas are two very different states in terms of education. I will say this, Oklahoma and Arkansas are pretty similar. The offerings that we have in Oklahoma are very similar to Arkansas, but if you try to compare Oklahoma to Texas, it ain't gonna work. So that's a problem if you have people moving from Texas to Oklahoma or Oklahoma to Texas. So the next chapter really looks at state functions, and then I'm going to cover federal functions after that. So that's it for this particular chapter. I hope you enjoyed the video for it. Thank you.